There's Karen screaming at the top of her lungs while the front door of my house is splintered wide open behind her. Two HOA officers in knockoff tactical gear are being restrained by real cops. And in the middle of it all, my son, shirtless, barefoot, and calm as a summer storm, has one of the fake rent cops pinned to the ground like a paper doll. Yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up with two HOA vigilantes breaking into my home over a fine, and more importantly, how they ended up on the ground gasping for breath, wishing they'd done a background check on my family. First, it started with a $5 fine, a harmless-looking slip of paper tucked neatly beneath the rubber band on my mailbox, right beside the coupon booklets and real estate spam. At first, I thought it was a joke. Non-compliant mailbox number visibility 5. The ink was faded, and the font tried its hardest to sound official. My house numbers were perfectly visible, bright brass, recently scrubbed, and facing the street. I even shined them with Brasso the week before. I figured it was some sort of clerical error, tossed the notice into the recycling, and didn't think twice. But the next morning there was another slip: failure to address prior violation 5, late fee. Now they were charging me extra for ignoring a nonsense charge. That's when I realized this might not be just a fluke. I walked across the street and knocked on my neighbor Ron's door. He's retired Navy and doesn't tolerate stupidity. You get any weird HOA fines lately? I asked. He nodded grimly, holding up his own notice: improper lawn edge symmetry, $5. We looked at each other and laughed, then stopped laughing. That week, more of those pastel-colored tickets started showing up, each one with a different reason: uncleared debris, 1 twig on driveway, trash bin visibility during non-approved hours, holiday lighting left up post-season. It was a single solar light shaped like a snowflake, still out from January, always 5, always signed by the same name, Karen Blandon, HOA compliance director. Every neighbor I spoke to had at least one, some had 4 or 5. It was like she was going door to door with a clipboard and a grudge. We tried to let it slide. $5 wasn't worth the headache. I figured if I just paid 1, maybe it'd stop. I sent the payment online through the HOA portal and got a receipt that said pending confirmation. The next day, I got another fine: mailbox paint inconsistency, again $5. But this time I noticed something strange. The digital ledger on the HOA portal didn't show my payment. No record of the 5, no confirmation email, no update to my account balance. When I called the number listed on the notice, I got an answering machine that said, "We are currently experiencing high call volume. Leave a message and someone from the compliance team will contact you." Nobody ever did. A few days later, I spotted a man in a windbreaker standing across from my house, pretending to check his phone while pointing it toward my garage. I stepped outside and asked if he needed something. He said he was just taking measurements for landscaping inspiration. Next morning, another fine: improper weed management, dandelions visible. My lawn didn't have a single weed. That's when I started documenting every ticket, every timestamp. I installed a trail cam aimed at the mailbox. Sure enough, the same guy I'd seen earlier came back at night and slipped a notice into the box by hand. Not a mail carrier, not city staff, just some guy in a hoodie and cargo pants with a flashlight and a smug little stride. One night, I stayed up to catch him in person, but he never showed. Instead, I got a different surprise. My mailbox door was open, and inside was a crumpled paper that simply read, "Too many questions, not enough cooperation, no fine amount, just that." Like a warning, I called the HOA to report it. Same voicemail. I emailed, got a bounce back error. When I logged into the portal again, my access was limited. Couldn't see my violation history anymore. The page just said access under review, compliance pending. That week, I noticed other neighbors acting strange, avoiding eye contact, shuffling quickly back into their homes. The nice couple 2 doors down wouldn't return my waves. Even Ron said he was going to lay low for a while. Then came the knock at midnight, just 2 taps, soft but deliberate. I opened the door and no one was there, but my mailbox was swinging open again. I checked the security cam feed and saw nothing but static during that 5-minute window. Next morning, I discovered someone had unscrewed the lock on my side gate, not removed it, just loosened the hardware so it would fall off naturally. And sure enough, the next time I opened it, the whole latch crumbled to the ground. That's when I saw him, another HOA board member, one I recognized from the last quarterly meeting, standing in my backyard, clipboard in hand, taking photos of my tool shed. I didn't say a word. I just walked straight up to him and asked, "You mind telling me what you're doing on my property?" He muttered something about routine compliance evaluation. I told him to get off my land before I called the cops. He did, but not before dropping another slip on my lawn: unsecured tools visible from street. I picked it up without breaking eye contact. "This is harassment." He shrugged. "This is HOA policy. I stood there for a while listening to the blood pound in my ears. That's when I decided it was time to call a family meeting. We gathered in the living room that night, me, my wife, our teenage daughter, and our son who'd just gotten back from overseas. His duffel bag still sat half unpacked by the stairs. He'd been home less than a week and had kept mostly to himself until now. They're watching the house. I said, we've had unauthorized entries, suspicious behavior, and now they're leaving threats. My wife's hands trembled as she poured coffee. My daughter was already texting her friends about transferring schools, but my son just leaned forward, elbows on knees, eyes locked on me. Do we know who's behind it? He asked. The head's a woman named Karen Blandon. I said, she runs the HOA like it's her personal empire, but there's more going on here. This isn't just about mailbox paint. He nodded slowly. Sounds organized. It is, I said, too organized, and now it's coming into our yard. All right, then let's return the favor. That's when I remembered who we were talking to. Not just my son, not just some kid with a high school diploma and a buzz cut. This was Staff Sergeant Marcus Hale, U.S. Army Special Forces, 3 tours, counterintelligence, surveillance, tactical response, urban warfare. He'd come home to rest, but now the war had followed him to our front porch, and Karen Blandon had no idea what kind of enemy she'd just made. Marcus didn't say much at first. After that night, he went right back to being quiet and observant, spending his mornings on the front porch with a thermos of black coffee and a spiral notebook in his lap. No phone, no earbuds, just him, his thoughts, and the neighborhood unfolding in real time. He'd nod occasionally, scribble something down, and sip his coffee like he was on a stakeout, and in a way he was. I joined him once or twice, but I could tell he preferred working alone. His eyes would dart every time a car passed. He noticed things most people wouldn't: tire tread patterns, frequency of certain vehicles, subtle changes in landscaping. By the second day, he had drawn a crude map of the block by hand, color-coded in red and blue, depending on which houses were was safe zones and which ones were compromised. At first, I thought he was being paranoid until I started seeing the same silver sedan drive past our house over and over and over, same time every day, never parked, never waved, just slow rolls with dark tinted windows and a broken right tail light. Marcus started timing it 4 loops today, he said flatly, one morning every 12 minutes. Then they pull off on a Greenville drive and disappear. You know who lives on Greenville? I shrugged. Karen's cousin, he said, named Steve, big guy, beard, wears tactical cargo pants and under-a-rower shirts even when it's 90 degrees. I followed the sedan on foot last night, watched it pull into Steve's garage. He flipped his notebook open to show me a hand-drawn sketch of the car license plate, half obscured by grime. It's unregistered. Plates don't match, probably a dummy vehicle. My skin crawled. Marcus looked me dead in the eye. They're building a surveillance ring. That same day, a new compliance notice showed up on our front door, this one for unlicensed porch seating structure. Apparently our Adirondack chairs weren't part of the approved neighborhood aesthetic fine, $10, double the previous ones. The notice also came with a bold red stamp across the bottom: secondary violations may result in legal consequences. Legal consequences over patio furniture. I called the number on the slip, got the same dead voicemail. Sent an email, bounced. Marcus watched as I slammed my laptop shut. They're not tracking fines, he said. They're testing obedience, see how far they can push before some one pushes back. The next morning, we got 3 more tickets: 1 for excessive driveway debris, a single leaf; 1 for unauthorized garden hose storage, coiled and hung neatly by the way, and 1 for vehicle overhang because my truck's hitch stuck 6 in past the sidewalk line. The fines were now $15 each. The ink on the slips was still warm when I picked them up, which meant someone had hand-delivered them again. That's when Marcus put up his first camera, small, subtle, clipped beneath the rain gutter like a wasp nest. Motion triggered silent infrared, fed directly to a backup SD card. If they want to watch us, he said, let's watch them back. Over the next week, we watched what he called the O Patrol get bolder. They started walking the sidewalks in pairs, black polo shirts with embroidered patches that read Community Compliance Task Force. They wore clipboards like holsters and cheap security belts with plastic flashlights and what looked like airsoft pistols painted black. One of them even had handcuffs dangling from his belt loop, like he was auditioning for Reno 911. Marcus zoomed in on the patch one night during a frame-by-frame review of the camera footage. That logo is not registered with the state, he said. These aren't real uniforms, they're just lawyering with power. I filed an official complaint with the city. No response. Called the non-emergency police line. Unfortunately, sir, it sounds like a civil matter between you and your HOA. Civil matter? As if these goons weren't standing in front of my house, filming my yard like they were preparing an indictment. I even went down to the county recorder's office to ask if there was any legal precedent for these kinds of compliance patrols. The clerk, a bored-looking guy in a wrinkled polo, shrugged. If your neighborhood bylaws allow it, and the HOA voted it in, then it's probably legal or at least hard to challenge. That same afternoon, my wife came home pale and shaken. They tried to block me from pulling into the driveway. She said her hands trembled as she set down her purse. Two of them, the ones in the black shirts, they stepped in front of my car and said I was pending review for vehicle access. I told them to move, and one of them said, "Ma'am, we are authorized to detain non-compliant residents until verification." I felt the blood drain from my face. "They what?" "I called 911, she said, but they walked off before the dispatcher picked up." Marcus didn't speak. He stood up slowly like a lever being cranked to life, walked into the garage, came back 10 minutes later with a black duffel. He laid it on the kitchen table and unzipped it without a word. Inside were 2 surveillance radios, a spare body cam, and a battered notebook filled with shorter than I couldn't read. "They want a show of force," he said, voice low. "Let's give them one." That night we didn't sleep. We planned. Marcus laid out a grid of the neighborhood and marked out key locations where the patrol routes were thickest, which houses seemed to be command hubs, who was probably watching whom. He drew out arrows and timing loops pointing out blind spots in their movements. "They've got no comms discipline," he said, "no pattern rotation. They move like mall cops who watch too much CSI." He had already hacked a radio frequency and discovered that their earpieces were just walkie-talkies on public bands. He recorded a few of their calls, including one where someone referred to us as code red hostile residents. The next morning, Marcus left the house wearing his oldest hoodie and a baseball cap. Said he was going on a walk. I didn't ask questions. He came back 3 hours later with a thumb drive and a smirk. "Got a nice look at their home base," he said. "Karen's cousin Steve, he's storing their tactical equipment in his garage racks of black polos, plastic badges, even these ridiculous little name tags." He plugged in the drive and pulled up photos of a shelf stacked with what looked like rubber bullet pouches and riot vests made out of canvas. "These idiots think they're running a militia," he said. "They're 2 Mountain Dews away from declaring martial law over uncut grass." Meanwhile, Karen continued her campaign of financial assault. The next ticket was for 50, repeat offender penalty level 3. With it came a notice that we were now being considered for lien processing and might face escalated interventions if noncompliance persists. The wording was legally soup, but Marcus parsed it easily. "They're trying to scare us into submission," he said. "She's hoping we'll either leave or pay up. She's wrong on both counts," I muttered. That night, we added new locks to the side gates and mounted 3 more cameras. Marcus kept watch from the front porch, headset in ear, listening to the patrol frequency. At one point, I heard him chuckle. "They think they're being followed," he said. "Guess they're not used to playing the game with someone who actually knows the rules." I asked him what the plan was. He looked up at me, that calm storm brewing in his eyes. "We wait until they cross the line, then we bury them in it." It was the kind of Sunday morning that felt like a sigh. The air was still, the coffee was hot, and for the first time in weeks, nobody had left a pastel cold violation on our doorstep. My wife had just pulled a tray of cinnamon rolls from the oven. Our daughter was sunbathing on the back porch with earbuds in, and Marcus, silent as ever, was posted in his usual spot, halfway reclined in the rocking chair, with that 1000-Y stare and a mug that said "World's Sun." It was peaceful, too peaceful, and when you've lived under siege by a homeowners association gone full Orwell, peace feels more like bait than a blessing. I was halfway through my second cup when it happened to crack, high-pitched and wrong, split through the house like a bone snapping. It wasn't the front door creaking or a branch falling. It was glass shattering, sharp targeted. I bolted up so fast I knocked my chair over. My wife dropped the coffee pot and grabbed our daughter, pulling her into the house as I sprinted through the back door and into the hallway. The noise came from the front of the house, my office. I barely made it to the foyer before I saw the splinters. My front window, the one beside the porch, was a spiderweb of broken panes, and through it climbed 2 figures in black shirts, black tactical vests, black boots, the words "OA Enforcement Unit" printed in block letters across their backs like they were SWAT and not Steve and Chad from the Fantasy Football League. One of them, shorter, stockier, was already inside, boot raised to kick in my office door. The other followed behind, waving a flashlight around like he was looking for hostiles. They weren't subtle, they weren't careful, but they were inside my house. I opened my mouth to shout, to demand they freeze, get out, do something, anything. But I didn't have to, because beside me Marcus moved. He didn't speak, he didn't yell, he didn't ask for clarification. He moved like liquid shadow, a quiet whine through the hallway, in one fluid motion. he was across the room, intercepting the first man before his boot could land on the door. A hand shot out, open palm shoulder grab, and the man's weight shifted in a blur. Marcus stepped and turned his hips and redirected the guy straight into the wall drywall. Cracked. The man grunted. By the time he realized he was falling, Marcus was already pivoting toward the second intruder. The second guy fumbled for something on his belt, what looked like a taser, but with bright orange trim, a prop, a toy. Useless. Marcus didn't give him time. He lunged forward, swept the guy's leg with surgical precision, and planted him face first into the hardwood floor. The air left the man's lungs with a sad little oomph. No wasted movement, no hesitation. Marcus knelt beside the two groaning figures, took the curtain cord from the living room drapes, and zip-tied their wrists behind their backs. Faster than I could blink. Clear, he said, just one word. That was all. My wife peeked in from the hallway, clutching our daughter, and I nodded. It's okay, it's over. But it wasn't. Not really, because the chaos outside hadn't stopped. A neighbor had seen the men break the window and called the police. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. A small crowd had already formed across the street, nosy residents with phones in hand, recording from behind hedges and mailboxes. And then came Karen. She strutted up our lawn like she owned the soil beneath her shoes, arms flailing, voice shrill enough to strip paint. Those men were performing a citizens' enforcement action, she screeched. They had legal grounds. They were detaining a non-compliant household for refusal to pay HOA-assessed penalties. Her face was redder than her lipstick. She pointed at me like I was the one who had kicked in my own window. You've been warned multiple times. I have it all on record. Behind her, Steve, the same cousin who'd been running their bootleg supply garage, stood with crossed arms and a cheap GoPro strapped to his chest. I stepped onto the porch where Marcus was calmly tightening the knot on the SE. Con man's wrists. They broke into my house, Karen, I said through a window while arms she huffed. They're OSHA certified security contractors. Marcus picked up one of their sidearms and dropped it on the porch with a hollow plastic thunk. This is a prop gun, he said, spray painted black, weighted with BBs. He tossed the second one beside it, the badge on his chest. You bought that online, 50 cents of aluminum and a fantasy. There's nothing legal about what just happened here. Karen's face twitched. You're not authorized to detain them, she shouted. You're not law enforcement, neither are they, I said, and just then the squad cars pulled up, two of them followed by a black, unmarked vehicle. Sirens off now, lights spinning lazily, the kind of police presence that suggests someone higher up had gotten wind of the situation. Officers stepped out, hands on their belts. One approached slowly, taking in the scene of the shattered window, the zip-tied men on the porch. Karen's hysteria. Someone want to explain what happened here? He asked. Karen practically launched herself toward him. This is an HOA matter. These two were conducting a scheduled compliance inspection when the homeowner and his thug son attacked them in broad daylight. She had the gall to look offended. This is vigilantism. This is criminal obstruction. The officer held up a hand. Ma'am, I'm going to stop you right there. He turned to Marcus. You the one who detained them? Marcus nodded. They broke in through the window, he said, armed, no warrant, no legal authority. I stopped the threat, no lethal force used. Restraint only. The officer bent down, picked up one of the fake pistols, turned it over in his palm. This is a toy, he said, spray painted barrel still plugged. He motioned to his partner. We've got impersonation of law enforcement, illegal entry, and criminal intimidation, maybe attempted assault, depending on what the DA wants to do with it. Karen's mouth fell open. What? No, you don't understand. They were acting on behalf of the homeowners association. They had jurisdiction. The officer didn't even look at her. Ma'am, your HOA isn't a sovereign government. He pointed at the broken window. This is breaking and entering. Then he pointed at the two men still face down on the porch. These two, they're going in. And finally he turned his gaze to her. And you're next if we find out you orchestrated any of this. Steve took a nervous step back. Karen looked like she'd swallowed a live crab. This is a misunderstanding, she whispered, a procedural error. No, ma'am, the officer said. This is a felony. Within minutes, the two officers were hauled off in cuffs. One was sobbing, the other refused to make eye contact with anyone, his little HOA badge dangling pitifully from his shirt like a participation trophy. Karen was pacing now, phone pressed to her ear, demanding to speak to her lawyer, the mayor, God, anyone who could salvage what was left of her paper-thin authority. Steve tried to blend into the crowd, but another officer pulled him aside for questioning the neighbors. Oh, they were loving it, phones out, lenses zoomed, documenting every second. By the time the last squad car pulled away, our front yard looked like the aftermath of a coup. Broken glass, zip ties, one saddle, looking compliance ticket stuck to the bottom of a boot. I stood beside Marcus, both of us staring at the chaos. "You good?" I asked. He nodded. They came in. Always be careful and thoroughly check every notice or fine from your HOA or any organization that holds authority over your property. Sometimes small, seemingly harmless notices can be the beginning of much bigger disputes. Stay calm and protect your rights legally. Don't allow individuals or groups to abuse their power to pressure, threaten, or trespass on your property. Document every piece of evidence related to suspicious behavior, from letters and fines to any unauthorized entries. Videos, photos, and logs will give you strong evidence if you need to take legal action. Use legal channels and seek help from authorities if you face coercion or unlawful threats. Police, lawyers, and government agencies can help protect you against illegal actions. Don't let fear control you. Stand up and speak out against unlawful behavior together with your community. Unite with neighbors, share information, and protect your common rights. If things escalate, be prepared and have a plan, supported by experienced and skilled people, especially if you have family members with the ability to protect you. As in the story, having someone disciplined and strategic helped resolve the danger and keep the family safe.